The core of responsible government was breached with the multiple appointments. In doing so, the member for Cook did not tell ministers themselves that he had sworn into their portfolios. His cabinet was not told. The department secretaries were not told. The parliament was not told. And through the parliament, the Australian people were not told. The member for Cook, in doing this, did not just fall below the standards expected. He undermined them, he rejected them, he attacked them, and he abused them. This place runs on rules and conventions. The mere existence of the office of Prime Minister and the existence of a cabinet is a convention. It's not in the Constitution, it's not required, it is a convention on which our system of government hangs. The concept that the parliament knows who has which job is essential to responsible government. You cannot have responsible government if you don't know what people are responsible for. And for 2 years, we didn't know.
It is an affront to our democratic Westminster system, which has functioned for well over 120 years. This House has the right to be informed of the appointments. The people of Australia had the right to be informed. In our democracy, what can be more fundamental than this? I do not accept any of the explanations put forward by the former Prime Minister for his actions, and I'm deeply disappointed by the lack of genuine apology, or more importantly, understanding of the impact of these decisions. I've said time and time again that we talk very much in this House about the great privilege and honour of being here, but we talk less often about the responsibility that comes with that.
I have no intention now, Mr Speaker, of submitting to the political intimidation of this government using its numbers in this place to impose its retribution on a political opponent. In addressing the matters that are the subject of the motion, I repeat that I have welcomed and support the recommendations of the Bell inquiry, and I note the following facts for the House. The authorities to administer departments were established as a dormant redundancy, only to be activated in extraordinary circumstances, evidenced by the fact that no powers were exercised under these authorities, except in the case of the PEP 11 decision, as such circumstances were not realised and therefore none of these authorities were misused. My omission was not having personally informed the Minister for Finance, who I believed had been informed through my office. Mr Speaker, I was mistaken about that, which was only brought to my attention when I made these matters public. I've addressed this issue directly with the then Minister for Finance. Had I been asked about these matters at the time, at the numerous press conferences I held, I would have responded truthfully about the arrangements I had put in place.
Order.
The recommendations of the Bell inquiry will appropriately remedy this deficiency in the future, and I support them. The decision to take on authority to administer the Departments of Treasury and Home Affairs in 2021 as a dormant redundancy for decisions that were not subject to Cabinet oversight was to be able to take swift action, if necessary, in the national interests in a time when Australians' interests were under constant threat. I now consider that these decisions in hindsight were unnecessary. They were unnecessary, and that insufficient consideration was given to these decisions at the time, including non-disclosure. I therefore accept the recommendations put forward by the Bell inquiry as an appropriate remedy to these shortcomings. I note again that these authorities were never exercised and as a result had no impact on the functions or actions of the government. It is strange to describe such actions as a power grab, as they were never exercised or even used to exercise influence over the relevant ministers. They were simply a dormant redundancy.
This was an abuse of power and a trashing of our democracy. I thought this morning we would see some contrition. Some. A semblance of contrition. We got none of that. We got hubris, and we got arrogance, and we got denial. The former Prime Minister owes an apology, not to people who he shared brekkie with at the Lodge. He owes an apology to the Australian people for the undermining of democracy, and that's why this motion should be supported by every member of this House.
What we're seeing is an exercise by this government in political payback and distraction.
Order. The result of the division is ayes 86, noes 50. The matter is resolved in the affirmative.